Hello, everybody. Welcome. There's a psych investigator. Hello, everybody. Welcome. There's a psych investigator. So, guys, I today I followed the format of yesterday that I did yesterday. It's interesting because it takes a lot longer to do as a video, but in some ways, I feel like it's closer to how my mind works. Right? Because of course I have this intuitive side, and that's what this channel is about. But I'm very fact-based, and I feel like that just oh, I have to brush my hair. Couldn't stop it. But this is how I think, right? I go through a lot of information, and then I use the intuitive. And as we're starting to deal with a lot of technical information related to some of the military operations and such, I find that it's weirdly helpful because I just come and talk, right? Instead of, oh, which one is this one or that one? So it's all prepared. It's almost like I'm the producer, right? I play more of the producer role and I'm organizing it. And then I come in and just do the show. It made me wonder also if I should start a different channel with just the facts without the psychic stuff. Because by the way, guys, psychic channels have very small audiences. And when you look at all the other channels, you have a lot more. Just thinking, because I just love the research, but when you're doing this sort of work where there's a lot of facts, you really have to go through everything so that people get the information, right? Because it's a lot of detail, right? So just sharing, okay? But having said that, let's do the protection. I like to ask for protection, a beautiful ray of light coming on top of my head as I breathe in. I feel my lungs as I breathe out. I create a circle. I create a circle. I step into it. I step into it. I feel protected. I feel connected. I like to ask that information come only from the highest sources that I create the good and on the goodness. So it is. Okay. So let's get started. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And by the way, guys, I hope you're doing okay given the circumstances and uh, doing everything you can to not spend too much time exposed to trash and his and the basically it's not just him, but it's a reality in some ways, right? But at the same time we have to detach if we can for now because it's so heavy, right? But let's get started. Like I said, let me go to the first question. Lev Parnas reports Trump used the military gathering to scan faces using AI. So this was a really interesting, kind of creepy, not kind of creepy, 100% creepy article that Lev Parnas posted on his Substack. And he said that people reached out to him and explained that the meeting's purpose was to scan the faces of the attendees and to use it to determine their emotions using AI. So, and by the way, this is something that is a thing in a lot of AI systems. It's called I forgot emotion recognition. It's complicated, but it is one of the most, I would say, quite advanced. It has been going on for a while from the very beginning that I remember. Even if you ever build an application using like preliminary AI, a lot of it has that. Okay, so because of course, if you know how AI systems are built, basically they scan hundreds and thousands of faces that express something, and then once the computer or the program has enough to go off from, it will compare, right? So it's a thing. I trust that part, at least I know it's real. But let's read a bit of the article before I go into the questions. So Trump used AI to scan generals' faces for loyalty and to root out whistleblowers. On the Jewish Day of Atonement, America must reckon with a president who never repents. So, okay, so Lev is Jewish, and he wrote this on Yom Kippur. Okay, so let me here get to the part where he talks about this. So after breaking fast tonight, While preparing for dinner and catching up on the flood of missed calls and messages, I heard from sources I trust, and what I heard stopped me cold. The reason Trump and Pete Hegseth gathered all those generals in one room was not just about a loyalty speech or a pep rally. I'm hearing that the Trump team used artificial intelligence and facial recognition technology during those briefings to monitor the generals' reactions in real time. Every eyebrow raised, every flicker of doubt, every moment of discomfort was scanned and analyzed by an algorithm designed to detect who would obey orders without question and who might resist. I'm also hearing from my sources that this isn't limited to the generals. The same technology is being used as a tool inside Trump's orbit, a quiet weapon of power deployed by his loyalists to identify and weed out whistleblowers and anyone who isn't completely obedient. This is how authoritarian power consolidates itself by quietly monitoring every reaction, every hesitation, every private doubt, and turning it into a scorecard of allegiance. This is the quiet introduction of a new loyalty test, not just pledging allegiance to Trump, but being scanned and scored by AI for obedience. It's the kind of surveillance authoritarian regimes use to root out dissent before it begins. And now it's being deployed against the highest levels of Americans' own military leadership. Okay. This isn't just unprecedented, it's terrifying. It is the fusion of authoritarian power with the tools of modern surveillance. And it's happening here in our country under our eyes. Okay, so I'm gonna pause here and then go to the questions. Now on to the questions about Lev's interesting story regarding the use of artificial intelligence to scan the participants of the military meeting. The first question is this true? I mean, I trust Lev, but just just wanted more information, or maybe ask, is this true? If not, why not? And is there more information that we need to know? Okay, so is it saying yes? Lots of cameras, and they were saying they were scanned before they came in. So you know how when you go to airports, they scan your face like this and that. So they were scanned, but they were not told what this was for. Okay. And it's saying that I'm not sure that they were definitely scanned. Their faces were scanned. I don't know it went into so much depth right there inside that one particular room. But it's saying they may be in fact be what's the word? It's surveilled, right? So that's right. It's saying yes, Trump is not him, right? His associates, and I think definitely people close to Peter Thiel are creating these systems to monitor the government itself because they know, especially the military, they're not that into him. So, okay, so yes, it's true. It's true, like in the terms that I have just outlined. Now, the second question here: did the generals know they were being filmed to feed an AI algorithm that was analyzing their facial expressions? It's saying they were scanned, they were aware of it because they were scanned at the beginning, I think, but they did not know the degree and I think they didn't know. That's what I get. That this was something but so I have a question. Who is monitoring them? Is it a yes, it's like some kind of it's being sold to them or told them it's some sort of like HR thing, but it's more than that. So so in other words, is the Pentagon paying for the system or is it some sort of external thing? No, it's saying it's the Pentagon itself, but they don't know. They're not being told the degree of surveillance that they are subjecting these generals to. Okay, so what is going on, and will this continue now that this has been made public? And then WTF. It's saying that's exactly what you said, Rosie. They are being surveilled. What is going on is this is surveilling those that are the most crucial for them because they want to find ways to get the military to comply with their agenda. And this is a way, it's a beginning. Okay. So will this continue now that this has been made public? No, I see they're revolting. They're saying that they not separately, but I see this tells me this is the beginning of the end. And people are saying people are telling Lev because they feel like they can trust Lev with this information. Wow. You know who comes back here is John McCain again, saying, yeah. And he's very he's like, yes, Rosie, they're not gonna get away with this. And he's like, no, the military is not gonna buy into this to this degree, right? So interesting information. So let's go to the next question, the next piece of information. Peter Thiel companies Anduril and Palantir sold the U.S. Army unsafe, very high-risk communication systems. So we all know of Palantir, right? That data mining company that has a lot of contracts with the Trump administration, especially once Trump was elected. They got recent contracts worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I think they got one for a billion or more even. What some people don't know about is Anduril. Now, Anduril is a company that is a defense company. They make hardware and systems, and it was co-founded by somebody named Trey Stevens. Trey Stevens is a co-founder of also Peter Thiel's investment firm called Founders Fund. So you could say that both Anduril and Palantir are Peter Thiel companies, basically. Okay. So what happened is today, news came out on Reuters that I'll just put it here on top. Then I'm going to click on it to look at it. So that there was a report by the U.S. Army saying that the system is very high risk and basically unsafe. And imagine battlefield communications obviously is very, very, very important. You can't afford, no country can afford to have it be compromised. But that is what this memo says, that it's unsafe. And we know that Peter Thiel is, of course, a financier of Trump. He has a lot of Russian friends. He's been involved in some Russian businesses, not Russian businesses, instances of doing co-investments with Russians, sympathetic to Russian ideas, okay, receptive to Russian ideology, so much so that we know what J.D. Vance thinks. And J.D. Vance is very much aligned with the Russian talking points. So come on, until when? Okay. And just to tell you how the news is so serious that it's considered so serious that Wall Street, um, on Wall Street, their stock, because Palantir is a public company, dropped 7%. Uh, this is the latest I heard that I read. Here it says 6%, but since 7%, it has dropped 7% on one day on this report. Okay, so security flaws in battlefield system. So let's because and when I clicked on this story, this is from one of those stock websites, right? Talks about stocks. It said that it was a big report published by Reuters, which is this one here, and that's when I'm going to go next to read this for you. All right. So just hold on one second. I'm going to go to the article. Oh, Anduril and Palantir battlefield communication system, very high risk. U.S. Army memo says. The much-needed modernization of the U.S. Army's battlefield communications network, being undertaken by Anduril, Palantir, and others, is rife with fundamental security problems and vulnerabilities and should be treated as very high risk, according to a recent internal Army memo. The two Silicon Valley companies, led by allies of U.S. President Donald Trump, have gained access to the Pentagon's lucrative flow of contracts on the promise of quickly providing less expensive and more sophisticated weapons than the Pentagon's long-standing arms providers. Military drone and software maker Anduril boasted it had a prototype of the NGC2 communications platform working during a battlefield test just 8 weeks after winning the contract award. But the September 5th memo provides fodder for critics who argue that Silicon Valley's move fast, break things ethos may not be the best approach for vital military equipment. The memo from the Army's Chief Technology Officer about NGC2 platform that connects soldiers, sensors, vehicles, and commanders with real-time data paints a bleak security picture of the initial product. We cannot control who sees what, we cannot see what users are doing, and we cannot verify that the software itself is secure, the memo says. These concerns have been addressed already as part of the normal process of development, Anduro said. The recent report reflects an outdated snapshot, not the current state of the program, the company said in a statement emailed to Reuters. A Palantir spokesperson said no vulnerabilities were found in the Palantir platform. However, the Army internal memo written by Gabriele Ciulli, the Army Chief Technology Officer, authorizing official on the NGC2 prototype, said, given the current security posture of the platform and the hosted third-party applications, the likelihood of an adversary gaining persistent, undetectable access to the platform requires the system be treated as very high risk. The Palantir stock was down more than 7% in afternoon trading on Friday. Anduril is not publicly traded, but company founder Palmer Luckey has said a public offering is planned. By the way, guys, you may know of Palmer Luckey because he is the brother of Matt Gaetz's wife. Remember him? How he married this woman? It turns out that that's her brother, Palmer. Okay, so all right. Despite the September 5th memo's critique, Leonor Garciga, Army Chief Information Officer and Chiuli's supervisor, said in a statement to Reuters this week that the September 5th reports was part of a process that helped in triaging cybersecurity vulnerabilities and mitigating them. But the CTO's assessment, seen by Reuters and first reported by Breaking Defense, comes just months after Anduril was awarded a $100 million contract to create a prototype of NGC2 with partners including Palantir, Microsoft, and several smaller contractors. Okay, so this is, by the way, I'll add the link to the to this article. Okay, and I'm not going to go into all the extreme details, but if you know anything about building software, what happens is it's not just that you build your own, is that in order to, there's always a library or something that you add. It's extremely rare that it just sits on its own. There's a lot of integrations. For example, the database where all of this is stored, there's a lot of different parts. And a lot of times when you hear about cyber intrusions, they happen on these, it's if you think about it, it's a bit like a plumbing, right? Where the two plumbing lines connect. That's where the entry path for a lot of hacking. Very common. Okay, so to me, that's what this is suggesting. Okay, here's one application revealed 25 high severity cold vulnerabilities. 3 additional applications under review each contain over 200 vulnerabilities requiring assessment, according to the document. So you could see how that is, right? And it's just, to me, honestly, this is really interesting. Not just because of what they found, but because of the timing, right? We have the military meeting, and now I think it feels to me that people who have knowledge of those types of things are starting to blow the whistle and tell the public what's going on. And I know, guys, I'm going to talk about it next. As you know, I'm doing a lot of research related to the financial part of things, and those people connected to Peter Thiel have connections to Russians in the financial system. So, hello, we need to wake up. Okay, we need to treat it very seriously because it is very serious. All right. Okay, so let me move now to the questions. Now, I know this was a really particularly creepy piece of information about Peter Thiel's companies, Palantir and Underil. So there's a lot to unpack here. I know my head is covering part of the screen, but as I start to answer the questions, I will drag the text on top. Okay, so let's see. All right, so why is this story coming out now? And I was there, it seems interesting. Okay, why is this story coming out now? Wow, I see an image of people with a megaphone, come out, almost throwing out darts to the world, saying SOS. It's time for us to share everything we see and know about these people. They realize, I feel like this whole military meeting was a watershed moment. It was a turning point. No pun intended. No mention of, that thing, but it was a turning point to people inside the military that they must do. And I see that they're all like, I don't want to say organized, but they're kind of feel like it's their duty to alert the public about what's going on. So it shows me also that so it cited the woman who wrote the reports, but she has nothing to do with the people who shared this with the press. And it was maybe the people that read this report that decided that it was time to share this because they starting to connect the dots like I was connecting the dots, and they want to make sure the public knows this. Okay. All right, let's go back. Okay, so are these systems, wait, what? No, I made it bigger. Hold on a second. Where? Okay. Why is this story coming out now? Are these systems deliberately compromised by, oh my God. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to delete this okay, so are these systems deliberately compromised by Peter Thiel's people with an intent to help the enemy gain access to highly classified info? Or was this quote unquote normal? Will it be fixed? Because sometimes I know from my experience building things, especially on the prototype end, it's easier to just build essentially the cover of something, right? The layer that people will interact with. The security layer, of course, not of course, but it will happen towards the end. So I'm not defending, I'm just saying. So, to give them the benefit of the doubt before I close my eyes here to ask the question. Okay. But let's see. So are these systems deliberately compromised by Peter Thiel's people with an intent to help the enemy gain access to highly classified information? Or okay, so would that be fixed? Well, it's interesting, guys, as I close my eyes, something's coming up that I feel like as I was reading this and writing the questions, I wondered myself, which was about the ease, like how they got these contracts, right? And I see that Peter Thiel's people like, yeah, we got the contract, man. Let's just jam it in. Like there's something about the carelessness now that they feel like they have control over the military in a way. And it shows me, even though I wasn't asking about this, it shows me the stuff we just talked about the surveillance. They feel they can now surveil specific people inside the military and know which ones are at risk. Like they can kind of try to flip. That's what I'm getting. So it's saying, but then again, back to the question, were they doing this with the intent to get information that they would then share with Russians, maybe? So interesting. What I get here is that they need to know that it would have taken a long time for them to feel comfortable doing something like that. They need to know that there's nobody watching the door. It's almost like if you think of a bank, and people who rob banks, they always figure out the security situation to make sure there are no security guards, or they understand how the security guards are changed and why they're changed, something like this. Okay. So 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 it doesn't make sense. So it tells me it was careless and they're kind of sloppy. And I think they don't really care about security because I feel like they have contempt. Honestly, even though like the US government is what provides basically their income. They are making hundreds of millions of dollars and billions in some cases.
And yet they have very little respect for people who work for the government at the end of the day, right? Not only are they libertarians, but they are also pro-Russian and close to Russians. So it's a way, in a way, the quality is lower because they care less about security, I feel like. And um, I get the impression that although it's not really the goal to necessarily make this applications this application vulnerable at the beginning, but towards the end they're open for it. Because I get also something here that it's as if they think that they are the ones, not the government, who should have the power over the people who work for the government. So it's almost like they want to do a coup within the coup of like, oh, we're the ones who have the information about them. We could tell them what to do. Peter, I think you just, what about that guy? He looks weird. I don't know. Do you like it? What is he thinking? Huh? So it's saying they're pretentious, entitled, and petty. And so does it make sense? It's like this is the whole overall pattern, right? Okay, so now let's go to the next. I'm gonna delete this part because we already asked this one. So let's go to the next. What will happen to volunteers stand? Wait, what is it? Okay. What will happen to volunteers standing in the DoD as a result of these reports? What is the likelihood Peter Thiel's companies will lose their contracts once the US government changes? So, first question, what will happen to volunteers standing in the DoD as a result of this report? I see this. And I see this image of ice. They want to put this on ice. It's as if they're finally, guys, kind of like, no, 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 no. And even though when I read the article, you saw that the supervisor had a different, oh no, no, everything is fine. I still feel like they're gonna put this on ice, even if they're told to use it. Does it make sense? I feel like that's what I see. It's being put on ice. And it's interesting also when I read their response, though there's nothing wrong. Like that's not a normal response. They should have said, we're taking we're taking care that there's no we're monitoring all the security, whatever, right? That security vulnerabilities. It's very unprofessional. So no, we don't have a problem. We'll never have a problem. Because you know why? No, you know who we are? We're close to Peter Thiel. He's so smart. He's so smart. Uh-huh. No, right? We don't care about that. So anyway, so that's this part. Now, so Frozen, I see Frozen again, and they're reviewing everything. That's what I see. Yes, it's saying that they have been kind of like flagged, I guess, because apparently the level of problems that they have found are pretty egregious. Okay, it's a pretty serious thing. Now, what is the likelihood Peter Thiel's companies will lose their contracts once the U.S. government changes? Say 100%, all of the companies that got government contracts during the Trump administration will be reviewed, and all of the officers connect that are kind of like employed inside the government, and they're like the top people will be interviewed, like quote unquote debriefed, to be interrogated, basically, like not violently, but so it will things will change, and they will change quickly. Hmm. May I ask, even though I'm not today's question is not about this, but what's how long? How much longer will it take? It's saying, wow, it's interesting actually. I got this image of like towards late winter and spring, and then it really cools. In other words, as the temperature outside gets warmer again next year, it will be totally frozen for them. Like it shows me ice under ice. Not ice, the agency, but put under ice, like frozen out. Possibly. But they have, I mean, we have a lot of their systems, so it's dangerous, right? Sometimes you can't stop something immediately. You have to put a stop to it gradually. But it's saying because the nation is under attack and all the systems have to be reviewed. Wow, guys, it's saying that it will come to the point where there's a recognition the nation is under attack and all the government systems have to be double and triple checked. So And as scary as it might sound, it's actually heartwarming to hear because at least something is being done. So, all right, okay. So let's go to the next.
So this was a really disturbing article that was posted on Twitter. I found it, but it's so important for what we're living. Okay, so I'm just going to read it to you. Russia persistently targeting British satellites, UK Space Command chief says. Major General Paul Tedman says Moscow trying to disrupt UK's military activities on a weekly basis and closely monitoring space assets. Now, think about it, guys. The fact that this person is making these statements in public, it means obviously he has the okay from the UK government, and he's obviously telling the truth. Russia is attempting to jam UK military satellites on a regular basis, according to the head of the UK Space Command. Speaking to the BBC, Major General Paul Tedman said Russian forces were actively trying to disrupt UK-based military activities weekly and were closely monitoring the country's space assets. The UK operates about 6 dedicated military satellites for communications and surveillance, which Tedman said were equipped with counter-jamming technology. They've got payloads on board that can see our satellites and are trying to collect information from them. The threat of space-based interference is not limited to the UK. In September, Germany's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, revealed that Russia had been tracking 2 Intelsat satellites used by the German military. They can jam, blind, and manipulate or kinetically disrupt satellites, he said at a space conference in Berlin. In response to growing international tensions, the UK and the US last month conducted their first coordinated satellites maneuver in space, in what defense officials hailed as a major step forward in an allied cooperation. Okay. The escalation of space comes as tensions with Russia continue to rise. In a speech to the UN in September, Cooper, that's the UK Foreign Secretary, condemned Moscow's provocative and reckless violations of NATO airspace in recent weeks, including incidents over Estonia, Poland, and Romania. So this is really interesting, guys. To me, honestly, the other thing that I think about is the relationship with Elon Musk, right? Like he has all these satellites. Is he helping the Russians? What the hell's going on? Don't you think? I just find it interesting. Okay, all right, now let's go to the questions.
Now, that's the now to the actual questions. What is going on regarding satellites in Russia? Although this was really this particular subject was related to the UK, I think in general. I think we want to know that. Is Elon Musk helping Russia with the satellite jamming technology? Is this somehow connected to what happened during our elections, where satellite communications may have played a role in connecting with the Russian military intelligence? So, what's going on with satellites in Russia? That's right. And I see Putin like yielding satellites as if they were swords, and they're like, ha ha ha. And I see another guy, another short guy, the guy who's Medvedev, the one who's 5 feet tall. It's like, yeah. Wow. And I see them talking to Elon Musk. Yes. Yes, Elon, go, Elon. Yes. So is Elon Musk helping Russia with the satellite jamming technology? It says yes. Wow. How? Oh my God. Wow. Guys, you know how Russia is under sanctions, right? So what I'm getting is it's saying Elon Musk is helping transfer some sort of like parts that are like really hard to find. They're helping them with that. He's helping the Russians. Yes. Yes. Okay. Is this somehow also connected to what happened during our elections? It's saying yes, they wanted to do this like war through space and domination through space. Kind of like remember how Reagan started this? So, yes. Wow, it's saying to me, guys, that the good it tells me this. Let me stop share. It's saying the good news is that once this it does show me that NATO will go after Russia. Uh, once this, that's what I'm getting, that once Russia is attacked or they're looking more and more into Russia, they're going to find the connections to Elon Musk. So unfortunately, they are two peas in a pod. They have worked together on several things, and there's no way to deny it's saying he definitely has helped them. And I see that America has become, and by America, I mean like even I don't want to say like, bad things about Biden or us, the Democrats, but we allow this guy too much leeway, Elon Musk, right? Here, he was working against our interests even before the election. And yet he has all these government contracts. I mean, we have never quite had a situation like this before. But this situation, the good news is that we're going to stop idealizing people because they're business titans, right? So, so that's the big picture of this. Okay. Well, interesting information. All right, on to the next.
Now, this is an interesting one. I had seen this online coming from an account I trust. This one here. His name is Igor. Let's see. Shushko, NATO is dead. Rute yelled at Estonian PM for calling an Article 4 meeting when Russian MiG-31s flew in. Estonia doesn't have an air force. Rute argued that if Article 4 were invoked every time Russia violated sovereignty, it would quickly lose impact. Now, I'm bringing this, like I'm showing you this because, again, it comes from Fox News. So I don't know how much I can trust it. And I'm gonna click on it and read it for you. But before I do that, I just to tell you that it's possible that they are trying to kind of create a specific narrative, right? But I'm just interested. I just want to know. Okay, so let me just click on it. 1 second. So NATO allies clash after Russian jets breach airspace testing alliance resolve. Secretary General Rutte and Estonian PM Michal disagree over Article 4 consultation requests, sources say. Exclusive. Recent, let's see here. Recent incursions into NATO airspace have sharpened divisions inside the alliance over how to respond, exposing both the strength and the limits of collective defense. Secretary General Mark Rutte clashed with Estonian Prime Minister Kristen Michal last week after Estonia invoked NATO's Article 4 clause, which triggers consultations when a member feels its security is threatened. According to three European officials granted anonymity to speak freely, Rutte argued that the repeated invocations risked diluting the treaty's force. One source said he even raised his voice at Michal, warning that NATO must be cautious about how often it signals alarm. Rutte argued that if Article 4 were invoked every time Russia violated sovereignty through drone incursions, fighter jets, cyber attacks, and more, it would quickly lose impact, according to the officials. Now, I'm I'm putting it up here, guys, because again, the account that was sharing this was um actually let's go back. The account is trustworthy, but this is just it's an interesting question, right? Because we all, that I want something to happen and I don't understand. So let's just see. I still feel like he's going to do something, but it would be interesting to see, right? Because countries like Estonia that truly are in danger from Russia, right? They have a reason why they want things to happen. They want protection. Because if NATO does nothing, then they are in serious danger of some sort of Russian invasion, right?
Now, I did like, as you know, I included this other thing because this part that came from Fox News, even though obviously Fox News is not really credible in a lot of ways. I just want to know because just want to look into this. because it still remains a mystery to us. Why doesn't he do something? And when I just looked at the news from the UK government, right? They were talking about space satellites. We're not waiting, right? People, I think the governments are waking up to the fact that they have to do something instead of waiting for NATO to do something. They have to protect themselves before anything, right? Because NATO, it looks like I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I think they are kind of getting ready long term, but short term, right? It's a problem. It's a problem. So let's look into this. So Fox News says Mark Rutte doesn't want to. He didn't really say that he doesn't want to attack Russia. This is my interpretation, okay? But he was complaining to Estonia that they're invoking the Article 4, and that's kind of too alarmist. And if every time Russia does something like that, like sending drones or crossing space, we have the Article 4, then this will dilute the power or impression of power. So I don't know. I don't know. This sounds on the one hand credible because he hasn't done anything so far. And on another, I don't know. So let's see. What is the truth here in this situation? Yeah, no, it's saying that in fact, it shows in the situation that the president of Estonia was alarmed. Of course he was, because it's a small country and they don't have a lot of power. They need NATO to truly protect them. And that Rutte is like, well, but we have to collectively act. We can't just do something like this. It will just create, we have to act in unison. It's saying that he's very like orderly like that, Rutte is. And that the Estonian was flabbergasted, like, come on, like we like do something until when? Right. So I just think it's not true that Rutte necessarily yelling. He was yelling at Rutte, I think with a reason. Okay, so is anything going to so what is the issue with Rutte? Why doesn't he do something? And this is and I think the undertone of this is also the question, what the hell is going on? Is there some sort of like nefarious reason? Why is it being slow? Okay, it's saying that he prefers to make sure everybody's ready and do it all at once. But it tells me actually, I've been seeing this in the last few videos. I've been talking about this. I see these airplanes crossing the airspace of another country, and then finally NATO does it because this is how you deal with Russia, right? Like I said, the one country that knows how to deal with them is Turkey. Turkey shut them down, and they didn't do it again. They learned the lesson, right? And that's how you deal with them. And so I see that more than one airplane is going to be shot down because enough is enough, right? So, and it's saying that he gives off this like air of not doing much, but he's doing something. It's just that he is waiting a little bit more. That's the answer, God. So he will do something, in fact. And no, and he's saying he's not, no, he doesn't want to just like that's what it's going back to what I got here, that he wants this to be a collective act and everybody behind it with the full strategy at once, instead of going what they call the protracted war. And by the way, guys, I have this weird obsession with the Vietnam War and the Vietnamese General Giap. And General Giap, of course, he was a master of guerrilla warfare, and they had a very weird, complicated terrain over. Not weird, but it's a very dangerous terrain over there. Horrible, right? All those, and imagine the insects, all the jungle, all that. They knew how to work with that terrain. It was Mao, some learning Mao Zedong, the Chinese communist leader, who wrote a book called Protracted Warfare, where it's about tiring the enemy. And right, so this is what the Russians are doing, actually. They're like, it's not a war of attrition because people are not dying, but it's like making us tired, right? So Rutte's position is that it's not that what they're doing is not a huge deal, but we shouldn't be dealing with this protracted warfare, right? We have to attack like when we kick them back, it should be like a superpower, so that it's not, so otherwise it just keeps going. So there he is, just getting ready for a bigger action at once. So At least actually makes me feel good because I had the question. So, all right, let's go to the very next and the last uh topic of the night. It's a lot. No, it's interesting and detailed. All right, so
So now let's go to this very weird. Is it weird considering the administration? I don't know that it's weird, but it's the news. So Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, went on this podcast, I guess, but there was also a video. You know, one of those podcasts that are recorded. And the New York Post reported on this, the New York Post being a right-wing newspaper owned by Rupert Murdoch, and Newsweek commented on it. So I am going to show you, and then I'll basically you will see the video here. This is the page. I'll play it for you, and then we'll discuss.
Breaking with the FBI and Department of Justice, one of President Trump's cabinet secretaries claiming that high-profile associates of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein not only knew of his behavior, but some even participated.
Did they see it and ignore it, or
No, they participated.
right?
That's what his MO was, get a massage, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume was on video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Epstein's former neighbor, recounting his alleged experience with the deceased billionaire to the New York Post, saying he believes Epstein may have traded alleged blackmail videos for a lesser prison sentence during his first criminal case in 2008.
I assume way back when, they traded those videos in exchange for him getting that 18-month sentence.
Lutnick describing Epstein as gross.
I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me.
Ooh.
And he says, and the right kind of massage.
His allegations in stark contrast to what FBI Director Kash Patel testified to last month.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals.
This as Republican leaders on Capitol Hill grapple with a push to have all the Department of Justice's Epstein files released. President Trump, who was friends with Epstein in the 1990s but later had a falling out, has called the effort to release the files a hoax created by his political rivals.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats and some stupid Republicans.
Now, that push to force a vote in the House of Representatives to release the FBI's Epstein files, it needs just one more signature. And there is a new Democratic member who just won a special election in Arizona, and she says she will sign that petition. But she hasn't been sworn in yet because House Republican leaders canceled the chamber's session this week ahead of that looming government shutdown. Robin.
But once she is sworn in, it'll be a different story. All right, Jay, thank you.
So, F and dumbass. Trump officials want Howard Lutnick sidelined after Epstein comments. Let's see, it's not letting me increase, is it? Hold on. And by the way, guys, this guy Lutnick is really quite corrupt, financially speaking, but that's beyond the scope of today's conversation. But let's read a bit of this. The Trump administration claims Jeffrey Epstein didn't blackmail anyone. His Commerce Secretary just called Epstein the greatest blackmailer ever. Now, it's kind of strange to me, like I said, guys, this guy, he's a really good salesman. It's pretty obvious if you ever watch one of his interviews. But why would he say something like this, right? It makes no sense. Okay, but let's just read this. Top officials in Donald Trump's administration are furious with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Knowledgeable sources tell Zatio. After he went on a tabloid podcast this week and blabbed about the one sex criminal who Team Trump wants to talk about least, Jeffrey Epstein. Not only that, but Lutnick went off script and undermined the government's entire story about the late Epstein. For months, President Trump and the highest levels of his administration have been trying to sell the public and his MAGA supporters on their conclusion that Epstein, the notorious sex offender and former Trump pal, did not run a secret sexual blackmail operation targeting wealthy, powerful elites. On Wednesday morning, the New York Post published parts of its podcast Sit Down with Lutnick, who was once Epstein's neighbor. The Trump cabinet member told the Post about his tour of Epstein's townhouse, where Epstein showed him his massage room. Lutnick said he was quickly disgusted before asserting that Epstein's rich and famous associates not only knew about his bad behavior but participated. He called Epstein a blackmailer, something the Trump administration strenuously denies. Several senior Trump officials, some of whom were responsible for carefully curating the messaging regarding the administration's decision to end its Epstein investigation, were apoplectic on Wednesday, bemoaning to one another about why Lutnick is still employed by the president and why the Commerce Secretary is allowed to do media appearances. 4 senior Trump administration appointees tell ZTO. That effing dumbass. 1 senior Trump administration officials told ZTO on Wednesday after seeing a clip of Lutnick riffing on Epstein. I've worked with him and I can tell you he doesn't think he did anything negative. That's how he thinks. He just talks and doesn't care what unhelpful bullshit comes out.
Now, this is such a weird thing, isn't it, with the Howard Lutnick thing? And I have so much to say about his financial shenanigans beyond the scope of today's conversation. But okay, this just sounds so weird. Why would he talk about this, like in the level of detail that he did? So, why did Howard Lutnick open his mouth to talk about Jeffrey Epstein? Why did he say Epstein was the biggest blackmailer ever? Because that's the thing that the Trump administration is denying, right? What does he know about Epstein that we don't know? What does he know about Epstein and Trump? What will happen to Lutnick now that he has made this statement to the press? Because the last article that I just showed said that they want to sideline him because of this. So why did open his mouth to talk about it? Saying because they're all narcissists. And this man, he's such a salesperson that he thinks that he's a smooth operator salesperson. Oh, well, I knew Jeffrey, that everything that comes out of his mouth, he can clean up anything. Oh, it's not. No, I knew about him. And in fact, and it's saying he's telling the truth, actually. Yes, it's saying he was telling the truth. It's saying he was telling the truth. He was his neighbor. He was right there. He saw the massages. Yes, that's right. I knew about it. Why is it's okay. It may sound weird what I'm gonna say, but I say no, it's saying he's innocent somehow, at least of the sexual part. So wow, and it's saying because if he were guilty, he would not be talking about it. I feel like, oh, it's saying because people ask him everywhere he goes, you are talking about this, and he knows that he has committed so many financial crimes, and he doesn't understand why the focus on this. And so he talks about it as a way to say, well, but I know about this. Is not everybody, but he doesn't care. Truly, he doesn't care about how how this undermines because the entire situation of the Trump administration, right, is all about hiding the truth about the Epstein thing. So why did he say that Epstein? Because it's true. He was telling the truth. And he's saying he wants to come off as a trustworthy person. No, I know. He was the biggest. I know all about it. I'm just like, okay, sounds so okay. What does he know about Epstein that we don't know? Why did he say? Because he knows that to be true. And he's not a bullshit. It's like, okay, he's a liar, he's a con man, but also part of him is not a bullshitter. So he's not lying. These things, these aspects, it was true. Okay. What does he know about Epstein that we don't know? He knows about the girls, and because he was the neighbor, he saw some of them crying. And he saw like these, and they look really, really young. And there were these men that were sort of like security guards or something, and they looked scared. He knew that. And he knows that there's a lot of finance people that had relationships with Epstein, or that he was blackmailing. That's also why. And when people, okay, that's right. And he would have dinners in his house, or he would invite people over to his house and then kind of fancy dinners or something. And that people would be like, oh, you live right there. I'm sorry, I can't come, because like they don't like Epstein at all. They're like, oh, that guy. Oh God. Oh. So, okay, now what does he know about Epstein and Trump? He knows he knows they went way back. They go way back. Yes, he knows. He knows. He knows about the modeling. He knows that Trump is a crook. But why does he say it? It's, to me, this makes sense. It's kind of like, it sounds, oh, it's saying because he knows a lot of people he doesn't like in the administration, either knew of that or somehow were present. And that's a way for him to say, it's a way for him to hold on to power. That sounds weird. To say, I'm not one of them. And to say, kind of like this is so bizarre. I was really not, I don't know what I was expecting, but not this. It's sort of like he knows, and he's reminding the people that are involved with him that he knows, and also that he can, in his mind, he can be public about it because he has nothing to fear. Okay. Okay. What will happen to Lutnick now that he has made this statement to the press? So I see that he's getting a lot of flack from Trump, and Trump called him. It's like, listen, man, what do you have to talk about it? Huh? It's like, man, oh, people shouldn't make a big deal about it, blah, blah, blah. And I see that Trump is furious, and that David Sachs, of all people, there's people who are supporting Lutnick because of the financial scams, that they need him in some way because of the financial scams. They've done scams together. But that's right. They want him out. And Trump was like, shut up about this. Wow, interesting. So I see that he knows also about the financial shenanigans. But somehow, again, he feels like he's immune. Yeah, guys, this one was weird to me, honestly. But he's saying when he goes public about this, it's saying he puts in his mind, he puts himself as he increases his position in the administration from his perspective, because he thinks, I'm not a dirt. He doesn't think he's dirty as far as Epstein. He knew him, but he wasn't he's saying, I was not one of the blackmailed ones, he says. Weird. Okay. But no, I see that Trump is furious about this. And he threatened to fire him. And he has to cool off, quote unquote. He says, just cool off. Stop talking to the press. Never talk about this, he's saying. Okay, so, oh, guys, by the way, of course, as I played you that video from ABC News, there was the part at the very end about the woman who was elected in special elections. And then when she votes, she has said she's going to vote to make this files public. But Mike Johnson is not letting her, is not letting her, is not making her an official member of Congress. So what's going to happen? It's saying she's going to have, yes, she will be sworn in, and she will vote to make it public. That's what I get. Interesting. And it's saying this will happen towards the very end, very, very end of the administration, meaning hopefully it's not going to last much longer. So that's it. Wow, this was interesting information. All right. Okay. Oh, guys, thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. And this was a lot of work, to be honest. I don't know if I'll be able to do this all the time, but like I said, it calms my brain in a weird way. It is also clear. It's very clear, right? It's very clear, very fact-based. All right. Okay. All right, guys. Good night, and thank you for watching. Okay. Bye. Bye.